Hello everybody, Happy New Year, welcome to 2025, a year in which I think we're going to see momentous events, and that is the thing I'm going to be talking about right now. I'm going to be having a look at the inauguration chart for Donald Trump, and we'll see how that looks, because it does look pretty spectacular to me, and it just confirms what I've been thinking, that 2025 is going to be a make or break year. For those of you who followed me for a long time, you'll know we often talk about the Great Reset, Agenda 2030, and we are racing now towards Agenda 2030. However, there has been a dramatic shift in tactics amongst the global elite, and that is what I'll be looking at. But for a start, let's look at this inauguration chart, because it is once in a many 100-year chart, because although Pluto was moving into Aquarius last year, there was no inauguration last year. So this will be the first time that we have a Sun conjunct Pluto at an inauguration, and it's on the midheaven, a pivotal part, an angle of the chart, something representing, destiny, leadership, and dramatic events. Now, the last time when Pluto was in Aquarius, America was just a few years old, and America obviously had its Pluto return, because when America was born, Pluto was in Capricorn, and when Pluto was in Aquarius last time, obviously no inaugurations, totally different setup. So this definitely has never happened before. What is Pluto symbolic of? It's transformation, bringing of life, death, dramatic changes, intensity, passion, rising emotions. It does represent also a sense of an ending and a rebirth, like, as I said, endings, beginnings, but this also chimes in with all these end times themes as well. Now, if you've watched me for a while, and I know I've got quite a few new viewers who saw my UK broadcasts, I said that the fact that Donald Trump had these special elements in his chart, Sun conjunct the North Node, conjunct, I think it's Uranus and Mercury as well, but Sun being conjunct the North Node, he was born at the time of a solar eclipse, which is a remarkable time in nature, and it indicates someone whose destiny will have great impact on the world. He also has his ascendant at 29 degrees of Leo conjunct Regulus, the most powerful kind of fixed star, also synonymous with leadership, luck, success. So this indicated from his birth that he was going to be president, not just at any old time, but at a pivotal time in America's history. And his own chart has a huge amount of synergies with the American chart, particularly the 8th house, which again has these Pluto themes of death and transformation. I've often postulated that he would be the last president of the United States, simply because the changes that are going to happen now are going to change the world, and we're all going to wake up in 2030 in a very different environment with extremely different influences and, challenges as well. Now, if I talk about the chart, let's just have a look, because I've got it up here, just to have a little check, because I can't see it over there. I'm going to put it there, like, after the show. What else we have? Okay, we have Taurus rising, and the ruler of Taurus is Venus, which is conjunct Saturn. Now, Saturn is a malefic when you look at these event charts. So it's the fact that Venus, although it's exalted in Pisces, is conjunct Saturn, gives us an ominous tone. What we also have is Moon in Libra, and while it's not void of course, it is in the Via Combusta, which is a negative placement of the moon, and it's in the 6th house, which is unlucky. 6th house also being the house of the military, and Moon being in Libra, Libra is the house of war and peace, negotiations, but also conflict because of its rulership to the 7th house. Now, Pluto, which of course is conjunct the Sun and elevated, rules the 7th house of war and dramatic conflicts between nations, changing in the notion of who are allies, who are enemies, etc. But I think the fact that Sun conjunct Pluto is on the midheaven is the most notable thing. This will be an impactful time. Now, the fact that the moon is last quarter indicates that Donald Trump won't necessarily go through this whole presidency. People constantly talk about assassination. It's a possibility. It's also possible he might step aside, because there is J.D. Vance, so plugged in to Palantir organization, a corporation very much tied in with globalism, globalists, technology that's involved in conflicts, wars, etc., etc. A lot of people have talked about that. So all in all, oh, and don't forget, Uranus, also the planet symbolic of sudden changes, uprisings, uptick in passions, in the mood, revolutionary spirit. That's in the first house. And most importantly, Mars, also a malefic planet on an angle. It's on the descendant, right? And it's not only on an angle, it's opposing the Sun conjunct Pluto. And in this chart, the Sun rules the 5th house. That doesn't really give me any extra information. But we've got two prominent malefics, Saturn conjunct Venus, the ruler, Mars on the IC, and also opposing the Sun and Pluto. Mars on the IC indicates a lot of discontent, and we're already seeing that because he's already walking back on a lot of his promises, and people are beginning to get a little bit restless and thinking, wait a minute, is this really what we voted for? Now, one of the things that struck me as really odd is this bromance going on with Elon Musk. It's almost a little bit too cozy and convenient. Just think about it. 2 years ago, Donald Trump was having all this litigation, trials, people were talking of him being locked up. Not that I ever really believed that. I always thought these trials were a way to legitimize him in the eyes of people who will believe my enemy is my friend. So the more they see Donald Trump attacked by people they hate, the more they'll buy in to the fact that, gee, he's just so powerful and influential, they just can't wait to get rid of him. So they wanted to put that in your mind, like the forces against him are terrified of his effect and they want rid of him. Meanwhile, there was a subtle shift going on in the media to rehabilitate his image among the minds of people who previously had their minds poisoned against him to get ready for this moment. And what was part of that? Elon Musk buying Twitter. So he buys Twitter, and the next thing he brings back Alex Jones, Tommy Robinson. I know Alex Jones was probably brought back later than the Tommy Robinsons, the Katie Hopkins. Obviously, there were loads of American influencers as well brought back to Twitter. And what were they all going to do? Be massive Donald Trump fans. They were going to, storm into the public square that really is Twitter with the so-called free speech and, keep up the momentum for MAGA, and which is they did. They helped propel him to victory. What's more is we also had kind of, what else, Katie? Yeah, I mentioned Alex Jones coming back. All the pro-Musk people were back on Twitter. Joe Rogan, and then he does the interview with Joe Rogan. He was all being set up for this march into power with the Senate and the Congress and everything, and an overwhelming victory. Plus now they prepared to say, oh, well, Biden was a bit doolally, and they kind of using that to telegraph that the Democrats aren't to be trusted. They fooled us with Biden. Everything is working in his favor. And Alex Jones will say, oh, well, the stars are aligning. Well, are they aligning, or is it really a plan coming into action? Now, what did Donald Trump mention at the end of his interview with Joe Rogan? He says, we're in end times. You heard that, yeah. And in the end times, the Middle East is really going to explode. So he brings in this notion of end times. He's peppering that in there. Now, remember, I talked about Pluto, endings, beginning. He's peppering in the end times. And then we have people, big accounts on Twitter, Alexander Dugin, who's the Russian commentator, also talking a lot about end times. So it's coming more and more into the public imagination. What do we have with Russell Brand? He's also massively making a thing of his conversion to Christianity. He's talking about end times. Put out on Twitter the other day, are we in end times? I mean, hundreds and thousands of views, likes, engagement on that post. Do you see this idea, this notion of end times being seeded? Do you see what I said to you about Trump being president at a pivotal time? And now, all these prophecies are being talked about, not only among conspiracy theorists, but a big topic among Zionist Christians. And at the same time, we see the events in Syria. Assad is gone, things are breaking down. We had the October 7th thing, and now we've got rolling conflicts there between the various factions in Israel, the various factions in Syria, and constant talk about will there be an attack on Iran? What would that look like? So, see me in part 2.